And we are joined now by a big supporter of Hillary Clinton, her former opponent, Senator Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders, thank you for coming in again this morning. I want to start out with that big New York Times story on Donald Trump and his taxes. We just heard Rudy Giuliani say it shows that Donald Trump is a genius. Your response?
Yeah, well, if everybody in this country was a genius, we wouldn't, like Mr. Trump is, and not pay any taxes. We would not have a country. I think it's outrageous, and I think it speaks to one of the issues that Secretary Clinton is talking about, I have talked about. We have massive income and wealth inequality in this country today. Rich are getting richer, almost everybody else is getting poorer. And yet billionaires like Donald Trump are able to manipulate the tax system so that they avoid paying federal income tax. In addition to that, you got massive tax avoidance by large multinational corporations, $100 billion every single year. So if Mr. Giuliani thinks that Mr. Trump is smart and all the rest of us are dummies because we believe in America, we believe in our kids, we believe in national defense, well, I think they have a very distorted view of the American people and what this country is about.
You can see that what Mr. Trump did, apparently here, according to the story, is legal, correct?
Right. Well, it may, I don't know. But assuming that it is legal, what it tells you is you have a corrupt tax system, which says to ordinary people, you're supposed to pay your taxes. But if you're a billionaire, there are all kinds of loopholes that you can utilize that enable you, who may be a billionaire, not to pay anything in taxes. You know, Warren Buffett reminds us over and over again, and he pays taxes, that his effective tax rate is lower than his secretary's. That is absurd. And by the way, one of the differences between myself, Secretary Clinton, and Mr. Trump, Trump wants to even make a bad situation worse by repealing the estate tax, which only applies to the top 0.2%, giving the very richest people in this country hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks. Secretary Clinton and I believe that the wealthiest people in this country should start paying their fair share.
Some of Hillary Clinton's critics have been targeting comments she made at a closed-door fundraiser back in February. I want to play them and then get your response. Here you go. She's talking about your supporters.
They're children of the Great Recession, and they are living in their parents' basement. And so if you're feeling that you're consigned to, you know, being a barista or, you know, some other job that doesn't pay a lot and doesn't have much of a ladder of opportunity attached to it, then the idea that maybe, just maybe, you could be part of a political revolution is pretty appealing.
Here's what Donald Trump tweeted about that. He said, Crooked H is nasty to Sanders supporters behind closed doors, owned by Wall Street and politicians. HRC is not with you, making a direct pitch to your supporters. How did you take it?
I took it exactly the opposite way. I think what she said, and by the way, during the campaign, we do have our differences. Secretary Clinton and I do disagree on issues. But what she was saying there is absolutely correct. And that is, you got millions of young people, many of whom took out loans in order to go to college, hoping to go out and get decent paying, good jobs. And you know what? They're unable to do that. And yes, they do want a political revolution. They want to transform the society. They want to make sure that when they get out of school, they can get a job that pays them wages and salaries commensurate with the education they have. I think that's a very important point. And that is an issue that as a nation we have got to address. How do we create good paying jobs for people who have a decent education? And one of the issues that Clinton is talking about is rebuilding our infrastructure, pay equity for women, raising the minimum wage to a living wage. So, in fact, we can have decent paying jobs for all of our people.
A lot of your former supporters who say they want a political revolution are still holding back from Hillary Clinton. What do you say to them?
This is what I say, George. Look, we live in a tough world. This country faces enormous crises, as we do as a planet. And I would like people simply, I'm not going to tell people how to vote, take a look at issue by issue. For example, climate change. A lot of young people are appropriately very concerned about climate change and what happens to our planet if we do not transform our energy system. Compare what Donald Trump says to what Hillary Clinton says. Donald Trump is ignoring science. Trump thinks that climate change is a hoax. Clinton has a serious plan in order to transform our energy system. Raising the minimum wage. Most Americans understand that a $7.25 minimum wage is a starvation wage. It's got to be raised to a living wage. That is what Secretary Clinton wants to do. I just spoke to her a few days ago. In the first 100 days of her administration, if she's elected, she intends to lay out a plan on climate change, lay out a plan on how we overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, which allows billionaires like the Koch brothers or Sheldon Adelson to buy elections. She wants to bring forth pay equity for women. So I think if you look at Clinton versus Trump, issue
But Senator,
after
I think
issue,
what the problem is that a lot of your supporters aren't necessarily looking at Clinton versus Trump. They're looking at Clinton versus Gary Johnson, Clinton versus Jill Stein, maybe thinking about staying home. Do you agree with President Obama and the First Lady who said this week a vote for anyone else but Hillary Clinton is a vote for Donald Trump?
Well, this is what I think. I think is that the evidence is overwhelming that the next president of the United States is going to be Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. I think if you're voting for somebody else, in a sense, and not supporting Clinton because she doesn't live up to all of your specifications or all of your ideas, I think in a sense it is a vote for Trump. And I think also take a look at Gary Johnson's record on the environment, on the economy. It is a very conservative approach, something that I think most of my supporters do not support.
Senator Sanders, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Judge.